What happens when seniors stop speaking up? Not out of fear, but love. A quiet fall in the kitchen turns into a family emergency no one saw coming. What unfolds next will change how you talk to your loved ones forever. Let me tell you something I never thought I'd say out loud after 35 years in medicine. Some words are deadlier than junk food. Not because they're poison by themselves, no. I'm not some philosopher throwing around metaphors to sound wise. I mean it literally. There are words I've heard my patients over 60 say, again and again, always casually, always with a little chuckle. And every time I hear them, I want to throw my stethoscope out the window and scream, "Stop doing this to yourself!" Not because I'm mad, but because it hurts to watch people self-destruct with a smile on their face. Let me rewind a little. It was 7:42 a.m. My coffee was still cooling on the windowsill, and I was halfway through a slice of dry toast because I'm a masochist and keep trying to avoid butter like I preach to my patients. Phone rings. It's Donna, 64, one of my longtime patients. She's got this voice, like an aging jazz singer. Warm, a little smoky, always calm. Except not today. "Doc," she said, and her voice cracked. "Something's wrong with Jack." Now Jack, that's her husband. Vietnam vet, 67 years old, built like a mountain goat and just as stubborn. Last time he was in my office, he tried to convince me that black coffee and bacon were God's multivitamins. By the time I got to the hospital room, Jack was propped up on the gurney, arms crossed like a teenager in detention. Donna was pacing in the hallway like a tiger in a zoo exhibit, one hand clutched around her phone like it was the last rail on earth. "What happened?" I asked, stepping in. And here's what Jack said. One of the 4 deadly phrases I will get into later, but for now, I'll let you feel the full punch the way I did. "It's nothing. Just old age. This is how it's supposed to be, right?" I didn't even sit down. I just stared at him. Because I've heard this nonsense hundreds of times. And every time someone says it, I watch a family lose a little more hope, a little more strength, a little more future. Let me say this loud and clear. Aging isn't a disease. But the way you think about it, that can become one. That phrase is like a mental straitjacket. The moment you say it, you give yourself permission to ignore everything. The dizziness, the memory lapses, the chest discomfort that comes and goes, the shortness of breath climbing stairs, because it's just age, right? Wrong. It's lazy thinking dressed up as wisdom. I've had 85-year-olds who run circles around their grandkids. I've seen 60-year-olds who are barely hanging on because they've already given up. And the difference, 90% of the time, isn't genetics. It's what they tell themselves. Words matter, especially the ones we say to ourselves. But the most dangerous ones? The ones we say to our family. Because those words echo. They shape what your kids believe about aging. They make your spouse stop pushing you to get help. They turn your grandkids into passive observers of your decline instead of active participants in your life. I sat across from Jack and said, "You want to die early, Jack? Fine. But don't you dare teach your grandkids that this is normal, because it's not." He blinked, then shrugged. That shrug, that little gesture, was worse than a diagnosis. It was surrender. Fast forward 2 weeks. Another patient. Another repeat of the same song. Karen, 61st. Retired school teacher, heart of gold, baked cookies for every kid in the neighborhood. But every time she came in for a checkup, it was the same story. "Nothing to report, Doc. Just getting older." Except this time, her daughter Lisa was with her. And Lisa? She was fuming. "Mom won't tell you," Lisa snapped, "but she fell. 2 days ago. In the kitchen. Landed hard. She told me not to make a fuss. I turned to Karen, and she gave me this sheepish smile like a kid caught with a hand in the cookie jar. I didn't want to worry anyone, she said. It's not a big deal. Oh, my God. That was number 2. Phrase number 2 on the list of silent assassins. I didn't want to bother anyone. Let me translate that for you. I was scared, and I didn't want to admit it, so I played it down and risked my life instead. That one drives me up the wall. Not because it's selfish, but because it's tragically generous. Older folks think they're protecting their family by hiding the truth. But what they're really doing? They're pulling the rug out from under them. You want to really scare your adult children? Don't tell them when you fall. Let them find out 2 days later when you've got a fracture and a blood clot forming. That'll do it. There's this strange epidemic in America no one's talking about. Not heart disease, not diabetes, not dementia. Silence. People over 60 have been quietly coached, by media, by family, even by other doctors, to be less demanding, less vocal, less troublesome, to suffer quietly, to age gracefully, like some worn-out antique vase collecting dust in a corner. And guess what? That silence kills more than anything else. It leads to missed diagnoses, untreated conditions, depression, falls, isolation. And then we sit around wondering why older people seem to go downhill so fast. They don't. They've just been taught not to tell you when they're slipping. You want a real kick in the teeth? Last month I was at the pharmacy, picking up my own boring cholesterol meds, when I overheard a conversation that made me physically wince. Older man, probably 70, talking to the pharmacist. She's asking if he wants to enroll in a medication reminder program, and he says, "No thanks, I won't be around that long anyway." Number 3. That was number 3 on the list. And let me tell you, that one's brutal, because it sounds like a joke, a little gallows humor. Harmless, right? Except it's not. You say that enough times. To your pharmacist, your daughter, your wife, and they stop pushing you. They stop fighting for you. They stop thinking long-term. Why plan for next year if Grandpa won't be around anyway? Do you know how many times I've had to fight against that defeatist script? Too many. Too damn many. If you're reading this and you're over 60, or you have someone in your life who is, I need you to hear me loud and clear. Your words matter. They shape the care you get, the love you're given, the future you build. Saying the wrong ones, even if they feel innocent, can destroy the very support system you're depending on to age with dignity and health. We've only scratched the surface here. And before you think, well, I don't say any of that stuff, trust me. There's one more phrase on my list, the worst one, and chances are you've said it more than once. And yes, even to family. So don't go anywhere. We only just started this conversation, but trust me, it's about to get even more revealing and urgent. Stick around, because what I'm about to share next could change the way you speak to your loved ones, and maybe even add years to your life. Let's not sugarcoat this. Words can rot you from the inside out. No, not the angry, dramatic kind you yell during an argument. I mean the quiet, polite ones. The "I'm fine" when you're not. The "don't worry about me" when your legs go numb in the shower and you're too proud to sit down. The "it's no big deal" when you've lost 10 pounds without trying. Let's talk about the fourth phrase, the last one on my list. The one I hate the most. The one I heard last Thursday at 3:17 p.m. from a woman named Helen, who sat across from me with the calm of someone waiting for their oil change, not a full-body medical review. I just don't want to be a burden. There it was. The final nail in the psychological coffin too many seniors build for themselves. I just don't want to be a burden. I've heard that phrase from CEOs and janitors, veterans and Sunday school teachers, men who fought in Korea, and women who raised 4 kids on nothing but grit and toast. It's always said softly, like a whisper, like a confession. But make no mistake, it's deadly. Because the moment you say it, you've pre-written your own obituary. You stop asking for help. You hide your struggles. You tell your adult kids everything's fine when you haven't been outside in 4 days and the fridge is empty. You wait 6 months to tell your doctor that your vision's been going blurry. You become your own ghost. Let me be clear. You were never a burden. You were, and still are, the foundation of your family. You raised people, built things, survived recessions and heartbreaks and winters without central heating. And now, when you actually need support, you're supposed to disappear quietly? Hell no. Let me tell you what happened at my house last Thanksgiving. I invited Walter, 66, a patient of mine who recently lost his wife. No kids. His only sister lives in Phoenix and sends him gift cards instead of calls. The man's been alone for months, eats canned soup, watches reruns of old westerns like they're gospel. He almost didn't come. Why? You guessed it. I don't want to be a burden, Doc. It took me 3 phone calls and a pie to change his mind. When he finally showed up, late, in a jacket 3 sizes too big, he stood at my front door like a kid at his first school dance. Awkward, nervous, eyes darting like he was waiting for someone to tell him to leave. But something happened when he sat down at the table. He lit up. He told stories. He laughed. He even argued about gravy thickness, which is how I know someone's feeling alive again. Then came the gut punch. After dinner, while everyone else was finishing dessert, he leaned over and whispered, "Doc, this was the first time in months I felt like I existed. Let that sink in. Not the first time I had fun, not the first time I had real food, the first time he felt like he existed. Because when you believe you're a burden, you stop seeing yourself as a person. You become an inconvenience, a shadow, a task. And guess what? When you believe that, others start believing it too. You think telling your kids, "Don't worry about me," is kind? That avoiding burdening them makes you noble? Let me tell you what it actually does. It teaches them to disconnect. It teaches them to prioritize convenience over care. It trains the next generation to treat aging as a problem, to avoid instead of a process to embrace. I've seen it happen again and again. A parent hides their decline. The kids stay blissfully ignorant. And by the time anyone realizes what's going on, it's already too late. Mild memory loss has become full-blown dementia. Minor balance issues have become a broken hip. A missed checkup has become metastatic cancer. You want to be helpful? Speak up. You want to be strong? Tell the truth. You want to protect your family? Let them show up for you. You think I'm above this? Let me tell you something that still keeps me up at night. My mom, 79, retired nurse, sharper than a cactus in July, fell in her garage last year, slipped on a patch of oil left by my dad's ancient lawnmower, hit her head, bruised her ribs, laid there for 2 hours until a neighbor happened to see her through the window. She didn't call me. She didn't call anyone. When I asked her why, she said, "I knew you were busy." I'm her son, her only child, a doctor, a man who literally built his career on helping people, and she thought she couldn't call me? It broke something in me. I told her what I'm telling you now. Being needed is not a burden. It's a gift. If you disappear quietly, if you shrink yourself to make others comfortable, you're not helping anyone. You're taking away the one thing your family needs most, your presence. So there you have it. The 4 phrases I wish my patients over 60 would never say again. It's just age. I didn't want to bother anyone. I won't be around that long anyway. I just don't want to be a burden. Each one seems harmless. Each one sounds gentle. Each one feels like humility. But every single one is a psychological bomb. And the worst part? Most of you don't even realize you've pulled the pin. You think you're being polite, brave, considerate, but you're setting fire to your future, one soft-spoken sentence at a time. And if you don't believe me, ask the families left behind. The spouses who say, "I didn't know it was that bad." The children who scream into pillows, "Why didn't they say something?" The doctors like me who sit alone in their offices at night wondering what else we could have done. If you're over 60 and you've ever said one of those 4 phrases, stop. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now, you are not a burden. You are not invisible. You are not done. But if you keep speaking like you are, you'll become all 3. And listen, I know some of you are already bristling. I hear the pushback all the time. I'm just being realistic. I don't want to make a fuss. I'm not afraid of dying. Fine. But are you afraid of being forgotten? Are you afraid of leaving things unsaid? Are you afraid of robbing your kids of the chance to love you while they still can? Because if you are, then talk. Say what you're feeling. Say when you're scared. Say when something's wrong. You earned that right. We're right on the edge of what matters most. What I'm about to share next will shock you, because I'm going to take you inside the hospital room where everything changed. You don't want to miss this. You've come too far to turn away now. I've been a doctor for over 3 decades, and I've heard a lot of things in hospital rooms: crying, laughter, full-blown family meltdowns, but nothing has ever stuck with me like what I witnessed last January. It started with a phone call. "Dr. Morgan, it's Lisa." It was Karen's daughter, the same Karen from part 1, the "I didn't want to bother anyone" queen. She collapsed. I found her on the kitchen floor. She's in the ER now. I dropped everything, drove faster than I should have, coffee still steaming in my cup holder, coat half on, heart halfway broken. You see, there's something that happens when you've known a patient for years. They stop being just a name on your schedule. They become yours. Not legally, not biologically, but emotionally. You've seen their scans, heard their fears, celebrated their recoveries. It's personal now, and I knew Karen had been holding back. She wasn't the only one, but this time it caught up. I walked into her room, and the air was heavy. Not with beeping machines or rushing nurses, with guilt. Karen lay there, tubes in her arm, bruises along her temple, lips dry like she hadn't spoken in days. Lisa stood by the window, arms crossed, face stone cold. Not angry, just frozen. "She fell," Lisa said, without turning. "Didn't tell me, didn't tell anyone, said she was just tired." I nodded. I'd heard the playbook before. Karen opened her eyes and looked at me. And here's the kicker. She smiled. Weakly, but smiled. "Hey, Doc," she whispered. "Guess I should have said something." And just like that, my throat tightened. Because that's the phrase that kills people. Not with violence, not even with disease. Just with delay. Guess I should have said something. By the time you say that, you've already crossed the line where prevention turns into reaction, where proactive care becomes triage, where life stops being a journey and becomes a countdown. Let me tell you something about daughters. They're strong. They carry the emotional weight of the entire family. They play the peacekeeper, the nurse, the event planner, the crisis manager. But when that weight snaps, it snaps. Lisa turned to her mother, and her voice cracked. Do you think I don't care? Do you think I wouldn't have helped you? What else are you hiding from me, Mom? What else are you waiting to collapse over? Karen looked down, said nothing. That silence? That silence was louder than any scream. I stepped in, gently but firmly. She didn't say it because she loves you, I said. She didn't want to worry you. Lisa shot me a look. But I'm the one who has to worry now. When she doesn't talk, I have to play detective. I have to read her mind. Is that love, Doctor? Or is that fear dressed up as sacrifice? And just like that, the room fell quiet again. She wasn't wrong. Let's get something straight. Over-politeness can be pathological. When you're over 60, you're told to be graceful, quiet, non-intrusive. Don't complain, they say. Don't dwell on it. You know what that leads to? Missed appointments, skipped tests, ignored pain, suppressed emotions, delayed diagnoses, preventable emergencies. I've had patients apologize for taking up my time while sitting in the emergency room with chest pain. Let me say that again. With chest pain. You don't owe the world your silence. You don't get a medal for toughing it out. And you certainly don't earn dignity by disappearing quietly. Back in Karen's room, the air was thick. Lisa had stepped into the hallway, trying to pull herself together. I sat down beside Karen. You okay? I asked. She nodded slowly. I didn't want her to panic. And what about you? I asked. Aren't you allowed to panic too? She laughed softly. I guess I forgot how. It hit me in the gut. So many of our seniors, the ones who raised families, worked 2 jobs, buried friends, kept going through every storm. They've lost the language of vulnerability. They've been strong for so long. They don't know how to ask for help without feeling ashamed. It's like watching someone try to apologize in a foreign language they were never taught. But it's not just about speaking. It's about being heard. That night, after the tests came in, bruised ribs, mild concussion, low potassium levels, and dehydration, I sat with Karen and Lisa together. And this time, I didn't play nice. Karen, I said, I'm going to be blunt. You're not going to make it to 70 if you keep thinking silence is strength. She blinked. So did Lisa. You think your family is fragile? They're not. They're exhausted, yes, but they're also resilient. But they can't help you if you don't let them. And then I turned to Lisa. And you can't expect her to change overnight. She's been carrying this alone for years. If you want honesty, you need to make space for her fear. They both looked at me like I'd just flipped the table, but in a good way. And something shifted in that moment. I saw it in Karen's face. That flicker of maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to disappear. That she could ask for help without losing her dignity. You want to know why this story matters? Because this is happening in thousands of homes across America. Right now, a woman is hiding her symptoms, a man is skipping his blood pressure meds. A couple hasn't spoken about their wills or their fears or their fatigue in months. And in each case, it's not because they don't care. It's because they're trying to be brave. But this kind of bravery kills. Real bravery is saying, I'm scared. I don't feel right. I need help. Can you come with me to the doctor? That's not weakness. That's survival. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you told your family how you're really doing? Not fine. Not hanging in there. Not same old, same old. I mean, really? Can't remember? Then it's time to change that. Because one day, maybe soon, maybe not, someone will find you lying on the floor, or passed out in a chair, or confused in the middle of the night. And they'll ask themselves, why didn't they tell me something was wrong? And the answer will echo through the rest of their life. We are standing on the edge of what matters most. What happens next is raw, real, and completely unforgettable. You've come this far. Don't stop now. What you're about to read will change how you see aging, family, and the power of finally speaking the truth. Let me tell you what happened 3 weeks after Karen's fall. I got a call from Lisa again. Same caller ID, same time of day. But this time, there was no panic in her voice. Just a kind of stunned joy. "Doctor," "Morgan," she said, "you're not going to believe this. My mom, she signed up for a class." I paused. "Like, a class? She's taking Tai Chi, and she's made a schedule. Like an actual color-coded stuck-on-the-fridge schedule. She even added me to it so I'd stop calling her 10 times a day." I smiled. "Good," I said. "About time she gave you something to nag about. That one small act, signing up for a community Tai Chi class, might not sound like much, but for Karen, it was a revolution. She had been so used to shrinking herself, to not bothering anyone, to hiding behind polite silences, that showing up for anything took guts. But now, she had a routine. She had movement. She had people. And most of all, she had words again. She started calling Lisa just to say how her day went. Not for emergencies, not for reminders, just to talk. That's the part no one talks about in aging. How quickly life dries up when the words stop. When conversations shrink down to, "I'm okay," and "don't worry about me," you lose the pulse of daily life. You become a ghost in your own story. Karen was finding her way back. And then there was Walter, my Thanksgiving guest. The man who almost skipped dinner because he didn't want to be a burden. Remember him? He started coming to group check-ins at the clinic. Low-pressure sessions we hold every month for patients over 60. We talk about meds, symptoms. Sometimes we just drink tea and complain about cable bills. It's loose, human. Walter didn't say a word the first 2 sessions. Third one? He opened up. "Doc," he said, "I threw out that chair." Everyone looked confused. He continued. "The recliner, the one I was spending 12 hours a day in. I sold it on Facebook, bought a bike. Not a real bike. One of those pedal things you do in front of the TV. But still, I'm moving." People clapped. Some chuckled. One guy shouted, "Next you'll be running marathons, Walter." But I saw it, the glint in his eye. He felt alive again. He felt seen. And that spark? That didn't come from a prescription. It didn't come from a test result. It came from a choice to speak up. Here's what no one tells you about real recovery after 60. It's not just about pills, procedures, or clean blood work. It's about agency. And the only way to get that back is to reclaim the right to express your needs, your pain, your joy, out loud. That's the hidden muscle we need to rebuild in seniors. Their voice. Because when you stop speaking, decisions get made for you. When you stop asking, things stop being offered. When you stop sharing, people stop listening. And it's not malicious. It's just how humans work. If you act like you're fine, people assume you are, even when you're not. Now let me tell you about Jack, our "it's just old age" tough guy from part 1. I scheduled a home visit. Jack wasn't thrilled. Donna offered me coffee. Jack offered me the same look he probably gave traffic cops in 1973. But then I did something I don't usually do. I made them sit at the table together. No TV, no distractions, and I said, "We're going to have a family meeting. Right now." Donna laughed. "About what?" "About the words you two say that keep each other in the dark." They looked confused, but they sat. I started with Donna. "You downplay everything. You say you're fine when you're exhausted. You do everything yourself, and then wonder why no one helps." She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. I turned to Jack. "And you act like pain is weakness. You shrug off symptoms. You pretend aging is a prison you have to tough out in silence. And then you expect Donna to read your mind." Jack squirmed, but didn't object. Then I said it. "You're both fighting alone, but pretending it's together." And that landed. Something cracked open in that moment. I could see it. No tears, no dramatic speeches, just a long, uncomfortable pause. And then Jack mumbled, "Well, I do feel dizzy sometimes." Donna's head snapped around. "Why didn't you say anything?" He shrugged. "Didn't want to scare you." She reached over and smacked his hand, gently, but with enough force to say, "Don't you ever do that again." And for once, Jack didn't flinch. Since that day, Jack and Donna started writing things down. Not big dramatic diaries, just sticky notes on the fridge. Slept badly. Back sore today. Feeling nervous about next appointment. They read them out loud at breakfast. It's simple. It's imperfect. But it's honest. And you know what happened? They stopped drifting apart. They started partnering again. Not out of pity. Not out of obligation. But out of shared truth. That's what words do. They connect you. Even when you're scared. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when your pride says, "Shut up." If you've made it this far, I've got one thing to ask. Go grab a pen. Right now. Write down the 4 phrases we talked about. It's just age. I didn't want to bother anyone. I won't be around that long anyway. I just don't want to be a burden. And then, write one big word across all 4. Stop. Tape it to your fridge. Stick it in your bathroom mirror. Set it as a phone reminder. Not because you're weak, but because you're ready to be stronger. Because the people who love you, and yes, they do love you, can't help unless you let them in. Because your life isn't over just because your joints ache and you take more pills than you used to. Because you deserve to be heard. Even now. Especially now. I'll leave you with this. Aging is not the end of the road. It's just a different stretch of highway. Fewer billboards. A few more bumps. Maybe less traffic. But it's still your road. And the only way to keep driving it is to speak. Say when something hurts. Say when something feels wrong. Say when something feels right. Say anything so we know you're still here. And still you. Because silence might feel safe. But connection? Connection keeps you alive. Literally. Emotionally. Entirely.